one's asking why. The world keeps spinning, no one seems to care. Lost in the noise, a silent prayer. Does anyone out there even hear the cry? I'm just a voice in the wind, but I'll keep on screaming, 'cause someone's missing. I won't stop dreaming.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope the sound is okay. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. I'm going to do my typical where I do cold case or project cold case homicide, unsolved homicides, and we're going to discuss the person before the tragedy because everyone deserves to be remembered by who they were, not how they passed away or who took their life. With that being said, I'll go ahead and get started. Before I do, let me say hi to Tree Nut, Papa Don. We got hey Remy. We got Chris. Hey guys, thank you for joining this evening. More will come in as we go, or they may not. But either way, I like quality over quantity. So let's just go ahead and get started with this. Oh, all right. So first we're going to start with Kevin. This is Kevin Kluwer. Now Kevin Kluwer loved all gourmet food and worked to learn how to cook. Now together, he and his brother were co-chefs on a team in Rockford, Illinois. 100 men who cooked fundraiser event for the Literacy Council. From shrimp appetizers to espresso mousse, all cooked it all. Now, Ronald Kluwer to Ronald Kluwer, everything together, including the main course, drew a crowd to our booth every year. Those cooking events ended in 2004. When at age 31, Kevin Kluwer was found stabbed at least 40 times in his apartment after a night out in Boys Town area of Chicago. Now, Kevin's murder remains unsolved, but the Chicago Police Department continues to search for answers. Now, Kevin was born on April 7th, 1972, and he had grew up in Chicago as a typical boy, playing in the dirt, out in the yard, playing with cars and bikes. We spent most of our summers outside, Ronald said. Now, from the time he was old enough to ride his big wheel until he was a teenager, as a teenager, he briefly was a limousine driver and developed a love for cars. Well, that's kind of neat, right? Especially sports and luxury models. He would talk about the day he would own his Porsche or Mercedes, said Ronald, but throughout growing up, he must have had 10 or more used cars, always trading up to his goal. He had a very loving childhood, but had some adjustments just as other children commonly endure. His parents were divorced. He and his younger brother Ronald, 7 years apart in age, had split up between their mother and father's households. At such a young age, Kevin lived with his mom, while Ronald had stayed with his father. Now, this, however, kept him and Ronald even closer. It made them feel more connected, even though they weren't together every day. They kind of appreciated each other more and kind of learned to accept to miss one another with distance. Now, Kevin had not only told anyone that he was gay at this point, fearing that reactions he would get that he would be frowned upon. Now, Marilyn helped Kevin feel comfortable with his family being okay with him being gay. I told Kevin he had nothing to be afraid of, and his dad would love him any which way he was. It didn't matter. Then Kevin finally got the courage to tell Jim, and he felt much closer to him. He knew at a young age that he was already gay, so it was no surprise to his father. For the first time, Kevin no longer had to hide part of himself in the people he loved the most. With the weight lifted from him, he had a whole new sense of confidence and embraced who he was. He had relationships, and those partners would come around to holiday gatherings. They were just part of our family, said Ronald. Halloween was one of Kevin's favorite holidays. One year there was a costume party, and him and his partner had dressed like women. They drove 2 hours to the party wearing these costumes. Now, Kevin doesn't do anything small. When he went out, he went out. Moments like that made him feel truly accepted and carefree at just being who he was, and just being himself. On March 24th, 2004, Kevin was out with his friends bar hopping in Boys Town area in Chicago, Illinois. Now, Kevin met a stranger and they went back to his place nearby. The next day, Kevin didn't show up for work. After several hours of not hearing from Kevin, his father drove to the apartment and found his son's body on the floor. The door was locked when the father had arrived, so he busted it in. His son was covered, and there was significant blood spatter. Now, it is the last thing any of us would have ever had on our minds. We thought the worst case was that Kevin would fall asleep and miss work, said Jim. And he had been stabbed repeatedly in the back, as if it was targeted with rage. When the Chicago police arrived, Marilyn and the rest of the family were not allowed to go inside, except Jim, the father, who was already in the apartment and called the police and had already seen everything. I didn't know what to expect walking in there, says Ronald. Now, thankfully, I dropped my daughters, Justine and Nikki, off at their cousin's house beforehand. After the crime scene investigation was done, Ronald went to pick up his daughters. The first thing on TV was the news about Kevin. It felt so surreal. How could this happen? Why to my brothers? Said Ronald. Communication with the police has been a huge struggle for the family. Chicago's known for that, guys. The original detective working on this case was cold and dismissive at the time, and when the family just was desperate for answers. Well, I don't owe you anything. I owe Kevin, said the detective. Then a new detective was assigned, and Kevin's family believed the detective was going to get them the answers. Wrong. According to Ronald, the new detective quickly received an arrest warrant in the case, but unfortunately, the individual was released. In 2017, another detective has been working on the case. And although progress is slow, he has been very attentive and gathers any piece of information about the case he can regarding the suspect known as Fernando. Now, there's been some developments over the years. A few years back, Chicago police traveled to Puerto Rico and interviewed the suspect known as Fernando. At this moment, the investigation had kind of paused. So there is not enough proven evidence of the suspect to solve the case. Grief and companionship are what keep Kevin's family together throughout this whole thing. They keep moving forward the best that they can while still searching for answers. I made a promise to my mom and dad before they passed to never stop seeking answers, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, said Ronald. Now, some days the grief is worse than others, but I find the best way to carry on. Now, Marilyn tried participating in grief groups. However, they weren't designed specifically for families going through violent crimes. It would have just brought back everything all over again, and that just wasn't helping. Now, even so, they knew that their efforts to find answers on what Kevin would have wanted. Kevin was always remembered as a person who's always made everything better. He was just that kind of guy. Every occasion, every holiday, every activity that his nieces participated in, such as soccer, musical theater, he was there. He loved his loved ones, and they still think about him every single day, carrying the weight of his loss and carrying his memory. Now, anyone with information concerning Kevin Kluwer's unsolved homicide is asked to call the Chicago Police Department at 312-744-6000. Okay, let me come back over here. Next, we have Tavarius Bryant. Sorry, I'm not great with the name, guys. Before that, let me go ahead and check chat. Looks like everybody's still in here that was in here. That's amazing. Thanks, guys. Thank you for sticking around. If you guys would please hit the like and share, it'd be greatly appreciated. It just helps me get these cases out to more people. And that's kind of the goal, is to just keep the faces out there. Now, this story is part of a collaborative project between Project Cold Case and a University of North Florida journalism class. Now, Tavarius Bryant was a loving son, brother, nephew, uncle, and friend who will never be forgotten. In his short 16 years of life, he impacted people in many ways that just would last a lifetime. He grew up in the small town of Dania, Florida, just south of Fort Lauderdale. He loved riding and fixing bicycles, but most importantly, he loved football. He was a star quarterback at South Brevard High School. On August 10th, 1996, Tavarius was at a laundromat close to the residence where he shared with his sister Lisa. And he was sitting down on his bike, just using the payphone to call his girlfriend, when gunshots were fired and his life was lost. Tavarius and his sister Lisa shared an apartment that was close to Sam's Coin Laundry, where the murder occurred. Now, Lisa remembers Tavarius telling her that he would be right back and him walking out the door and never coming back in. It was approximately 2 a.m. Lisa, who was ill and pregnant at the time, fell asleep. She was awakened by a loud banging at her door. I remember opening the door to our neighborhood friend, And the only thing he told me was that Tavarius had been shot. Now, when Tavarius's mother got the news that her son had been shot, she just didn't believe it. She remembers saying over and over, "No way, that it's just not true. It's not my son." His mother recalls arriving at the scene and seeing her son's body in the street, not covered up. She remembers someone shouting, "That's his mother, cover him up." His sister Venetia says people told her that her mother jumped out of the car with the vehicle still in drive, and someone had to get the car before it rolled onto the train tracks. Now, Tavar Tavares's aunt Muriel was not there when the tragic incident occurred, but she remembers her friend picking her up from the airport and just silently being in the car along with her sister Jeanette. "Hey, just Sam, thank you for coming in." His mother, Jeanette, had 3 children, and Tavarius being the only boy, his smile is something Jeanette will never forget. He had the biggest dimples. When his friends and family saw Tavarius, they would refer to his smile as the electric smile. That's adorable. His family shared many fond memories that they'll never forget, from wrestling with his little sister, Venetia, to fishing with his mom, Jeanette. Memories their family holds dear to their hearts. Now, Jeanette recalls when Tavarius would bring home friends and she would cook for them while they all shared the details about their day. The family always looked forward to the holidays, and Tavarius especially loved eating his mother's home cooked meals. Now, his mom believes that Thanksgiving and Christmas were his favorite holidays because there was always plenty of food to eat. I can relate. I mean, guys, we all do it, right? So, according to his family, Tavarius was a great person of strength. He was a generous and caring young adult with a strong moral character. He loved helping others. He often helped his friends when they had issues with their bicycles and was very proud of his mechanical work. If Tavarius was here today, he would be a retired NFL player, said his sister Venetia. That's the kind of gift he had while growing up. Everyone knew he would make it that far. According to his best friend Dante, Tavarius was a special kind of person. You just knew that he was a good guy all the way around. The loss of Tavarius still haunts his family today, and it's difficult for them to pass that laundromat. They hold on to the possibility of the truth coming out. Someone, they believe, knows something that night. The family just keeps holding on to those memories. Now, holidays will never be the same, says Lisa. It's a hole that can never be filled. And, he was too good to be in this world, she says. Now, if you have any information on the unsolved murder of Tavarius Bryant, please call the Broward County Crime Stoppers at 954-493-8477. And he was young. He was 16. My goodness, that's way too young. Hey, Josh the Posh, thank you for coming in. So happy to see you. Okay. Oh, I'm going backwards here. Sorry, guys. You know how I get. Okay, let's go to the next one. I apologize. We have Timothy Brown. Now, Timothy Brown was a family man. Grandma's house was the place to be, and Uncle Tim was the life of the party. He was always helpful with his 3 children, his nieces and nephews, whenever anything would come awry. Uncle Tim was going to call even if you did something good or bad. Now, 18 years ago on Christmas Eve, Timothy Brown never came home. He was shot in a friend's home after going out of the town for the night. His murderer has never been found. Now, Timothy went out with a friend to Voussoir Restaurant and Lounge in the Atlantic Beach area. The Voussoir is a small restaurant that opened in 1971. When he went to his friend's place of residence to rest after that night, the house was small with just a few windows, and the front door could be seen from the front of the house. According to the reports, Alicia's recounting, shots were fired after an altercation with someone at the door, and the shots were heard for miles. Timothy only being 38 years old, Alicia said that most of the stories she has heard is hearsay from friends and family. Timothy Brown was a short man, but everyone knew when he entered the room. He was only around 5'6" tall and had big eyes. When he was younger, he had short hair and began growing it out to dreadlocks before he had passed away. He had a beautiful smile with one gold tooth on the side, Alicia said. Now, as a child, Timothy was known as his friends and to his dad as just a wonderful child. He was a shoulder to lean on, always helped his friends. That continued as he grew up, and he was always providing aid to his nieces and nephews. The movie theater was one of Timothy's favorite places to be. Timothy and Alicia's mother were not together, so the first place that Alicia would had met her father at the time was that movie theater. So she was always told that she was a crybaby. As soon as the mother put me in in his arms, I stopped crying, Alicia said. Now Timothy was supportive of his daughter and everything that she did. When she was younger, Alicia played basketball at Fletcher Middle School, excuse me. Alicia recounted an early memory of one of her first games. Now, to Alicia wanted to show off to her dad just how much she had learned to enjoy basketball. So she accidentally scored for the wrong team. I ran to the wrong goal and gave them a point. Now, she said with a laugh, her dad cheered her on anyway. Timothy Brown was a working man, doing any job he could to provide for his family, and he was known to do all sorts of jobs, including becoming a roofer and a milkman. He was a go getter and worked at BMW. He did a little bit of everything. Now, his family was the number one passion for Timmy. He was always looking to help and provide for his children and extended family. He was passionate, disciplined, keeping all the kids in line and out of trouble. He was a very loving individual. The financial part wasn't the most important thing to him, it was just love. Timothy was a good man throughout his life, doing everything he could to take care of people who mattered most, including his three children and his whole family. He left behind a fiance, three children, and the rest of his extended family. Now, Alicia is still affected by her father's murder today. She said she rarely goes to Atlanta Beach for the fear that the person who killed Timmy may just be there. Now, Alicia said that her father's death did teach her one thing. It hurts, but I've got to be quick to pick up on it, she says. The murder inspired me to represent his ideas and be a responsible person. She wants to remember that Timothy was a good man, even with his flaws. Nobody's perfect, Alicia said. No matter their lifestyle, they deserve their story to be told. I couldn't agree more. Anyone with information that could possibly help this investigation is urged to call the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office at 904 630 0500. Okay, do we have any questions in chat before I continue on? Thanks, Josh, again for coming in. I'm happy to see you. If we don't have any more questions, I'll just keep moving on. We got Theon Davis. Everybody good? I'm guessing everybody's good. Are we awake? We're awake and good. Okay. All right. Good deal. uh, oh, now there we go. I thought maybe my chat was froze. All right. So we have Theon Davis. This story is part of a collaborative project between Project Cold Case and the University of North Florida journalism class. Josh says, barely awake. Sorry. Wake up. No, I'm playing. I'm just playing. Hey, you know what? It's Saturday. Just rest. Every week, young Janelle Freese would get excited to visit her grandma in Huntington Park, California. Her grandfather, Theon Davis, always made sure to have a little stepping stool for Janelle so that when she arrived at their house, she could step up to the kitchen sink and wash whatever farm dishes that grandpa and grandma had to bring home. Hey, Dexter, thank you for coming in. This became one of Janelle's favorite memories of her grandma. After August 5th, 1971, Janelle was no longer able to visit her grandmother in Huntington Park. That day, 63-year-old, I don't know if it's Theon or Theona, but I'm thinking it's Theon. Theon Davis was found murdered in the bedroom of her home. The murder remains unsolved. Now, born in Salt Lake City, Utah, Theon was the eldest of six children. She had olive tinted skin and dark hair that seemed to just be contrary to her Swedish roots. After her youngest sibling was born, Theon's mother became very ill, leaving a lot of family responsibility on her. Janelle said that her grandmother dutifully accepted any responsibilities from a very young age. At 17, she got married and had a son. 6 months later, however, the marriage was annulled, leaving Theona, a mother in 1920s, alone. That same year, Theon, her siblings, and her mom moved to Las Vegas. Her father started a dry cleaning business where he had a lot of movie stars and celebrities coming in to have their clothes cleaned. Now, Theon had always enjoyed singing and became a popular radio singer. She sang on local Los Angeles radio broadcasts where she met Jimmy Durante. I'm sure you guys know. The famous comedian and radio host. He became quite smitten with Theone and invited her to come sing for him on his radio shows. He gave her one of his piano stools, which is now owned by Theone's youngest granddaughter, Janelle. Rumor has it that she, Theone Lingram, at the time, was the infamous Mrs. Calabash that Jimmy Durante would always sing about in his shows. Rumor has it that she was incredibly talented. She was part of an all girl band where she played the piano, violin, and sang. She also worked at a theater in 1927, was crowned Queen of Cinema to open the latest season of movies in Los Angeles. Now, after courting for 7 years, Fiona and her new husband, Ted Davis, got married and started a family. He adopted her son, and they had two daughters together. Fiona and her husband were very hard workers, running a tobacco business in downtown Los Angeles and Pacific Avenue. I've- Oh, have you? Wonderful, Josh. I love the 1920 ones though because there's so much like it's just really neat to hear how times were then. Now, Grandma had to go shopping for the tobacco leaves on Whittier Boulevard, Janelle said. I mean, it was a big business to go find the right stuff and to find their own blend. They sold that business in 1960 before getting into the real estate business. Now, Theone and Ted both worked side by side for their entire marriage, which lasted 40 years. At the time of her death, Theone and the family were living in Huntington Park, California, where they got closer to their business and their previous place in downtown Los Angeles. Janelle said that Huntington Park at the time was a very happy community and everybody knowing everybody. According to the website Neighborhood Scout, Huntington Park has a higher crime rate than 89% of California's cities and towns of all sizes. Oh wow, California's got some crime, so yikes. Both Theone and Ted were very involved in the city and its politics. They became leaders of a church in Huntington Park after helping to build it. Ted was part of the Kiwanis Club and president of Chamber of Commerce. Janelle said everybody knew them, loved them. On August 5th, 1971, Theone was at home cleaning house in preparation for hosting a huge bridge party with neighbors. So she went to the grocery store at 2 p.m. to buy items for her party later that night. Now, that was the very last time anyone saw or spoke to Theone. By the time she got home and the time that her husband came home from work, something had happened. Upon arriving home from work, Ted found his wife's lifeless body on their bedroom floor. Theone had been strangled, bludgeoned, shot in the head, and sustained severe internal injuries that included broken ribs, a ruptured spleen, and a crushed larynx. Yikes. So Ted immediately called the police, guests for that party and the evening, family doctors. Before anyone who knew it, the bridge party guests were showing up to the scene as well as the local Huntington Park Police Department. Too many people in the home at one time. People were coming in and out of the house, guests waiting to get their stuff. You know, they wanted to help by cleaning and washing dishes, getting the stuff they had there, putting the china away, and just comforting Ted. But with police officers at the home as well, the scene became a mess. While people were moving around the house at this Huntington Park police were waiting for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office to take over, Theone's body was left in her bedroom for many hours. The Los Angeles Sheriff's Office reported the scene to find a mess. They were at loss to find fingerprints everywhere, and even to begin finding evidence who might have committed this crime went straight down the drain. There was too many people. Due to lack of evidence, the murder of Theone Davis quickly went cold. Just in a whole, it really tore people apart, Janelle recalled. So many people loved Theone and Rue that day that they just wish they would have done something different. Yeah, yeah, like the worst crime scene contamination, Josh. That's crazy to think they had that many people in there at one time. Hey, Sonny, thank you for coming in. Janelle and the family took that to be a mission to find some good in the world again. They all agreed that Theone would want them to laugh, play music, have fun instead of being miserable. Now, though Theone's unsolved death continues to haunt them, they're still able to find a little joy and laughter in their lives. In the last couple of years, I keep hearing my grandma saying, "Don't remember me for the way I died, remember me for how I lived," Janelle said. If you have any information on the unsolved murder of Theone Davis, please call the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office at 213-229-1700. That's terrible. It's awful. Let me check chat real quick, see how you guys are doing. Reminds me a little of John Benet Ramsey saying, um, Yeah, yeah, because they did have so many people in there, and you think that they would have done a little bit better with it, but I I mean, I really can't say because I don't know. I don't think officers realize until they get to the crime scene that, how many people are in and out of there. It's kind of on whoever's in that home's responsibility to keep everyone out. But in this case, and it was in the 20s, I just don't know if they knew that yet, like how important that was at that time. I don't know for sure. This is Linda Alamong, and I might say this wrong, and I apologize if I do. Linda Alamong was a young adult full of hope. She was always looking for a new adventure and chasing the next journey. She was unapologetically herself and lived her in her own ideas. When alone, I can smile. Being lonely is better than being false, Linda would often say. Then all that ended when she was murdered in 1975 at the age of 25. Her body was found decomposed in an oil field. Oh, the murder has never been solved. Linda lived most of her life in Long Beach, California, but she was also known at her wanderlust and never stayed anywhere too long. She was whirled into this zeitgeist. How do I say it? Zeitgeist of the late 60s and pursued excitement whenever she could find it. I don't think I said that right, guys. At the age of 17, she married Donald O'Connor. Soon after meeting him at a party, she had returned from the Vietnam War. They moved to Colorado together. However, she was unhappy there, and Donald knew it. I bought her a ticket to LA and told her if she wanted to go, go. When I came back home that day, she was gone. Donald, however, ended up following her. She was pregnant after all. Their daughter Shannon Miller was born to be born soon. And as soon as she was, Donald took custody. Afterward, Linda lived as a wanderer. She would come back to Long Beach whenever she wished and didn't stay for long. She would leave unannounced, disappear for months without a word to anyone. She was only 25. She wasn't ready for kids, Shannon said, who was only a few years old when her mom had passed on. I'm sure she would have grown out of it. In March of 1975, Linda married a man named Louis Flores. No one around Linda seemed to know who Flores was. By September, she was married again, and this time, Harvey Walters. She and Walters married in Las Vegas, but no license has ever been discovered. Therefore, more than likely, not a binding wedding, a law abiding wedding. Walters was part of Hell's Angels biker gang. Oh my. In November, Linda's body was found dead. Her clothes had been pulled up to her neck with her dress covering her face. She died from blunt force trauma to the head with a large concrete slab. Due to her unpredictable lifestyle, nobody reported Linda as missing. She was found several weeks after the murder by a high school student looking for lizards. Her body was decomposed to the point they couldn't immediately identify her. Yep, Hell's Angels biker gang. I did say that, Josh. Yeah, I was like, whoa. So Shannon Miller never had a chance to really know her mom. She was raised by her dad and her stepmom, who happened to be a close friend of Linda's while growing up. Hmm, isn't that just ironic? Most that's kind of how things go. Shannon grew up near her maternal grandmother, who was raising Linda's two sons. Shannon's half brothers, Shannon always thought that her stepmother and stepbrother were her true blood relatives, and her brothers down the street were just simply friends from the neighborhood. No, no one reported her missing. Then Shannon learned the truth. She learned about her mother's story while visiting her paternal grandmother. However, most people around her were tight lipped when speaking about her mom, and Shannon learned to stop talking about it. In recent years, Shannon had a renewed interest in the death of her mom despite never knowing her. I just think it's wrong that the killer got away with it, she says. They've got to live free, and they may still be out there. Despite encouraging initial contact from the Long Beach Police Department, the investigation didn't seem to move forward much, if at all. Investigators openly discussed with Shannon that the evidence was no longer available due to the age of the case. Whether it was destroyed, misplaced, thrown out, or simply decayed beyond use, there was more than just detectives that could do this at this point. The death of Linda Alamog was a tragedy. Perpetrators were never brought to justice, and Shannon just wishes she knew her mom. If you have any information on the unsolved murder of Linda, please call the Long Beach Police Department at 562-570-7244. Let me come back over and check chat. Their oil field. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure, Josh. I live in Missouri, so I'm not positive, but I don't know if there are oil fields near Long Beach. Does anyone in chat know? Someone in chat may know. Me living in Missouri, I have no clue. I'm not gonna lie to you and act like I know because I really have no clue with that. Does anyone in chat know if that is near if there's fields near Long Beach? Okay, so next we're gonna go ahead and jump over to Jonte. Jonte Thomas. Now, it wasn't an uncommon sight to see John Tay Thomas and his mom, Anita Gibson, grabbing breakfast together. They would ride together and spend the meal catching up with each other's lives. The last time they got breakfast together was a little different. As Anita describes it, her son had been to a street pharmacist in the better part of 20 years. She needed to tell John Tay that she had heard talk of jealousy, even intent to kill him, being discussed around their Cocoa, Florida neighborhood. Oh no. Could you imagine having to tell your child that? Oh my goodness. No way. Ugh. All right. Well, let's get into it and see why. As Anita cried, Jonte said, Mama, you're going to be all right. Those were the last words he ever said to her. Not long after that, on December 9th, 2016, he was shot through the window of his car. Now, Jonte spent the next 2 weeks in a coma. After coming out of the coma, he spent the next 3 months in the hospital and in physical therapy and seemed to be on his way to recovery. But on April 12th, 2017, he found himself in the hospital again because of a seizure. Now, that was likely related to the gunshot wound. He returned home, but a second seizure happened on April 30th that landed him right back. Jonte died the following day on May 1st. His murder still remains unsolved. Now, Jonte was Anita's first child. His sisters had several kids, so they were finally able to have a baby. That baby meant a lot to her. Anita's pregnancy was admittedly difficult, but December 6, 1980 was a time for celebration. Anita described her son as the joy of her life, and she loved to spoil him. Now, Anita described her son as the joy of her life, even to today. In retrospect, Anita's discipline was non-existent. When Jonte would do something and she disapproved of, she would just ask him to stop. But she also would continue to spoil him with video games or anything else that he would ask for. Jonte was a good student in school, making A's throughout his educational career. His teachers even suggested moving him up a grade level, but Anita decided to keep Jonte home with the kids his own age. Now, Jonte would often complain about feeling unchallenged and frustrated, waiting for classmates to catch up on topics he already understood. On December 8th, 2016, Jonte went to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando to watch the high school football state championship between Cocoa High School and the Bowles School of Jacksonville. Jonte, enj- Jonte, Jonte enjoyed the afternoon watching Cocoa win the title and then hanging out with his friends in Melbourne, Florida at the club. At 3 a.m., Jonte was driving the group back home, heading north on the boulevard, when he began to make a left onto Mitchell Street. Bullets were fired, smashing through the car's windows. The other two passengers in the car were able to duck down and avoid the gunshots, but Jonte, not so lucky. One bullet struck him in the back of the head and the base of the skull. Now, if you think that you have any information about his unsolved murder, please call the Cocoa Police Department at 321-639-7620. That's terrible. That's horrible. Okay. Yeah. I know, Josh, yeah. So no one reported the other one missing. Hey, Mustang, thank you for coming in. Yeah, the Long Beach oil field discovered in 1921 on Signal Hill is a mega giant field that once the world's richest by surface area. Oh, well, good to know, Josh. That's good to know. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I did not know that. I had no idea. No clue whatsoever. Okay, let's go ahead to the next. We have Dennis Wustenhoff. Now, Jennifer Lees loved going to softball games as a teenager, but not because of the game itself, though. Jennifer's father, Dennis Wustenhoff, played in a men's softball league that would bring his daughter along for trips. Now, they would often throw in an opera tape in the cassette player and pretend to sing along. Dennis with, falsettos like Luciano Pavarotti and Jennifer ac- try this again. Jennifer as his accom- oh, I'm tongue twisted tonight. Okay, let me skip that. After the games, the two would stop at Scuttlebutt, a bar owned by their Uncle Tommy, and play arcade games while indulging in Shirley Temples. I look forward to those days, Jennifer recalled with a smile. Jennifer holds tight to those memories now. The days of truck rides, softball games, arcade games, and exuberant singing is over. Dennis Westenhoff was born in Queens, New York, before his family moved to Long Island. It was there that he would thrive as a child, enjoying sports, just spending every minute outdoors, crafting his unique sense of humor. He always had the ability to make people laugh, even at a young age. He was always there. Melissa says of her father, "We never felt like he wasn't there." My dad loved the beach, Melissa recalled. We grew up on Long Island surrounded by the beach, so that's where we spent our summers. Even on his off days, Dennis would always clean the house and have a perfect yard. Now, we were so excited, we knew our rooms would be perfect, Melissa laughed. Dennis was so passionate about a clean house, he would pick up each fuzzy on the ground and throw it out. It was always a running joke in the family. The kind of guy Dennis was a no fuzzies on the carpet, perfectly manicured grass, straight rake lines in the flower beds. Friends and family often joked that Dennis secretly relished his long hair and ear piercing, although he was quick to claim it was just part of his undercover facade for the police department with a giggle. The motorcycle and truck he drove outside of work, however, were only for his personal usage. Now, Dennis loved his tight knit community on Long Island. He was known as the jokester, the one who was always able to get people to laugh. But on February 15th, 1990, Tony was standing outside installing a new door. He heard a loud noise outside that sounded like an explosion, but didn't think too much of it. He decided to finish installing the door, then he would learn about what happened later. Then he saw police and emergency vehicles racing through his neighborhood. I tried to call Dennis, but he didn't answer. Then he learned what happened to his friend. When entered his unmarked undercover police vehicle, a bomb implanted under the seat exploded. According to reports from this time, Dennis was conscious when rescuers arrived. He was flown to the hospital where he would die. Oh my goodness, he was an undercover officer. That is so sad. Police initially investigated the bombing as a probable assassination, believing that Dennis was the target after a recent conviction or to interrupt current investigations. Dennis has spent the last 6 years on the narcotics team working on major drug trafficking cases. Oh, okay. The investigation soon turned after questioning a fellow Nassau County Police Department officer. Robert Horon was questioned about the case after investigators learned that Dennis had an outgoing affair with Officer Horan's wife, Nancy. Now, Robert had spent 20 years working with the department at the time and the Emergency Services Bureau, but previously with the Hazardous Materials Unit. Uh oh. Uh oh, guys. I think we're fixing to get into some drama here. So, so what do you guys think? So he's an undercover officer. He gets in his car. There's a bomb under his seat. He sits down. The car blows up. Then they find out that his partner there, he's having an affair with his partner's wife. So do we think that this has something to do with the assassination? Or am I just tinfoil hatting it here? I'm curious what you guys think because I can tell you what I think, but I want to see what you guys think first. Do you think the affair had anything to do with what happened to him? Dex says affair. Yeah, maybe. I think it very. I'm not blaming because, of course, we don't know, but yeah, it does sound that way, doesn't it? Our mom lost her husband in a horrific way, and her personal life was exposed, Melissa said. She felt like she had to defend him. Now, they all felt the need to defend Dennis. Westenhoff's children acknowledged the affair and the perception that, it was illicit, and they don't want their father remembered for his mistakes. He did so much good for the world. Melissa remembers his father as a man who always helped others, a man who always made others laugh. Yeah, Mustang, I agree. I mean, I know that he's undercover in narcotics, but the fact that his partner knew that he was undercover, and then him having the affair with his wife, yeah, we all know how that goes. Mm, yeah, right. I mean, it could, Chris. You're right. I mean, it very well could be both, I guess. Um, but how? Like, do you think? How can it be both? Do you think that it's because he's undercover in narcotics, you mean? Or do you think it's because the narcotics maybe belong to the wife? What do you mean? How could it be both? Do you think that maybe the wife was undercover too? Or I don't know. I'm curious to why you think it could be both though. That's got me very curious too. Like, I know that this is such a sad story, but if you really think about it, he was undercover for narcotics. It very well could have been a setup of a drug deal. It could have been someone that caught on, or it could be his partner who knew exactly where he would be at a stakeout undercover. And if he found out that he was like having an affair with his wife, I don't know. I don't know. See, some of these old ones, they're really tricky because you don't know. Mm-mm. It's crazy. I don't know. Let's see. So there was never talk of divorce, she said. Things happen. I want people to know that my dad was a great man. He was a great human being. And obviously, nobody deserves to be murdered. And I can agree with her. Nobody deserves to be killed for any reason. Kevin has followed in his father's footsteps and is currently working as a police officer. Jennifer wishes she could just have more time with her dad, and she knows he would have been a wonderful grandfather. Now, today, the three Westenhoff children have kids of their own, grandkids that never will get to meet their grandfather. Two of them were named after their late grandfather. Children shouldn't have to learn this, Melissa said, noting how difficult it's been to even approach the topic. The older children are now starting to learn about their grandfather and what truly happened. They aren't shying away anymore. And they say that Paw passed away in a car accident. And I guess technically he did. The Paw they never got to meet. If you have any information on the unsolved murder of Dennis Westenhoff, please call the Suffolk County Police Department at 631-852-6392. This is a very interesting one that I kind of think I may want to deep dive in. What do you guys think? Could the wife of the guy tipped off a person who, I mean, maybe. I don't know because the wife would have been having the affair with him. So why would she tip off a person with him if she was having an affair with him? Do you think maybe the husband found out and maybe they had an argument? And I don't know because I think the wife would have talked. We're going to have to deep dive into this, aren't we? Yeah, I knew. Josh is like, yep, it's worth the deep dive. Yep, I agree. Because now this one's got me just like, wait a minute. Yeah, it's definitely worth a deep dive because we don't know. Like, we don't know if, yeah, yeah. I definitely am going to have to deep dive into that one because ooh, I didn't even expect that one to pop up. I don't read these beforehand, guys. I read them with you. So my reaction is your reaction because I read them with you. I don't read them ahead of time. Okay, enough of my rambling. Let's go to Ruthie Jean Hayes. I'll get her little grin. Ruthie Jean Hayes was the only girl in her family of three brothers, but that didn't stop her from pulling her weight. Ruthie was a doer. Her cousin Owen Lund said she could go in and get anything done. Now, Ruthie was born on December 29th, 1948, in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Her family had then moved to West Plains, Missouri, where she spent most of her life. It was a simpler time, a time before the internet, and a simpler place, one in which the resident chopped their own firewood. Well, it's still like that in Missouri. The Hayes family lived in Missouri alongside the Lunds. The Lunds had 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls. Now, Owen and Ruthie were close in age, Owen just being 2 years older, and the two were close growing up. They could always relate to one another, and Owen could understand what Ruthie was going through as a teenager. Now, Ruthie and her family would often spend time at her grandmother's farm in the nearby town of Caulfield. Now, there they would spend most of their large family gatherings together, well over 50 family members in attendance. Wow, I don't even have 50 family members. That's amazing. We were one big happy family, Owen recalled. Grandma's fine farm was their safe place. Now, during the Great Depression, she had raised 8 children on her own. She considered it her mission to make sure that every child and grandchild of hers was never done without food for the rest of their lives. Now, Owen compared their family outings to like the Waltons, the 1970s television series, which would showcase the life of a Great Depression era family. Josh says, Ruthie seems familiar to me. Yeah, you may have. We didn't have a lot, but we swung on grapevines and climbed hills. From playing in the spring to gathering food, Ruthie and her families always worked together. Now, when it came to hay hauling, Ruthie did her part. She could buck hay just as well as any one of her brothers. Owen recalls one of the most favorite memories of Ruthie. The Hayes and Lund kids spent the entire night watching movies at a local drive in theater. They made sure to stay up to see the sunrise. Now, Ruthie was always taking care of the family. At their all As their all-nighter continued, Ruthie made sure to make breakfast for the group in the morning before their big day of fishing. Now, Owen said it was a great day for teens. It felt like they were just experiencing freedom for the first time. Ruthie married her husband Robert in 1966 when she was 17 years old. 2 years later, she gave birth to her only child, Elizabeth. Now, Robert was stationed in Vietnam during the war, so Ruthie and Elizabeth lived with their mother in West Plains. This wasn't out of the ordinary. Ruthie would often spend days at her brother's house returning home, but she never made it back this time. On June 19th, 1969, Ruthie's body was discovered along U.S. Highway 63 in Brandsville, Missouri, a neighboring city to West Plains. Ruthie Jean Hayes was only 20 years old. Reports from the time indicate that Ruthie died from several skull fractures and a broken neck. According to the police, she was last seen walking outside alongside the highway at 8:30 the night before. Now, police at the time believed that Ruthie was pushed from a vehicle. Yikes, wow. Was never far from the Hayes family growing up and nothing changed. One uncle died in 57 from a car accident. Another died in his early 20s after getting into a fight over a poker game. The murder has still gone unsolved. Owen often thought that there was a curse on the family growing up. You never knew when you were going to, lose a loved one, he said. It was horrible. It was like just becoming the norm. Robert Hayes became Robert Hayes came home to Missouri for his wife's funeral, but then returned to Vietnam. He never returned to Brandsville, instead remarrying and starting a new family. Now, Elizabeth was only a year old when her mom had passed away. She never got to meet her mother, Elizabeth, and was left in the care of her grandma, who raised her. Now, her contact with Robert has been reportedly just spare, just real sparse and infrequent. Elizabeth still lives in Brandsville, Missouri today. She still drives down Highway 63, the same route her mom was discovered on 50 years ago. If you have any information on the unsolved homicide of Ruthie Jean Hayes, please call the Howell County Sheriff's Office at 417-256-2544. And this guy's is down by Ozarks of the Missouri Ozarks. Yeah, that's pretty sad. That's crazy. I'm see, like I said, I don't even know these cases. I read them with you so that I'm just as surprised, and my reaction kind of goes with yours. Next, we have James Norris. Does anyone else think he gives like the Roadhouse, Sam Elliott vibe with that hair and mustache going on? God love him. James Norris. Okay, let me go ahead and get started with his. Sorry about that. Rosemary Norris Southward's brother died 47 years ago, but she still thinks about him every day. If I could ask him anything right now, I wouldn't ask what ended him, she said. I would ask him if he really has been with us through all of our family's joys and sorrows. It sure does feel like he's right here with us, she says. James Jimmy Norris was creative and animated and often a little mischievous. There was never a dull moment when James was around, and he was always looking for an opportunity to pull a prank. One time as a teenager, James insisted on helping set the table for dinner, and as the parish priest was walking in and joining the family that night, his mother was mortified when everyone sat down at the table and realized that James had set out the special salt and pepper shakers. Oh no. Oh, that's so cute. He does have a mischievous smirk about him. He does. And the fact that did the salt and pepper shaker trick. Uh-oh. And it was a priest. Oh, no. But in October 1974, James Norris disappeared while on a trip to Florida. 18 months later, his remains would be found in a wooded area of Dixie County, Florida. Oh. James grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. He was an intelligent man. After high school, he went to the local community college before transferring to San Francisco State University and earning his bachelor's degree. Now, there he would receive a teaching credential for adult education classes and started teaching English as his second language. During the 1960s and the early 70s, San Francisco State was a hotspot for civil rights and Vietnam War protests. James was no stranger to social justice issues and was known to join the protest on campus. He helped promote the hugely successful San Francisco moratorium against the war in Vietnam. On October 3rd, 1974, James stopped by his family's house and asked if he could watch his dog as he went on a trip. He never disclosed details of this trip, just that he would be gone for 5 days. His mother grew concerned when James never returned home. She was getting increasingly fretful about it. Rosemary says, now she always had this sixth sense about things, especially when her kids were involved. When James arrived at his destination, he sent his family back in California a postcard. Now, that postcard would be the very last time they ever heard from him. Rosemary still has the postcard, as it reads, my favorite family, I hope you are well. I hope my dog is not preggers. Feed her as well as you feed her as well as you please. I forgot to give you some money to keep her. Take her to Dr. Miller if she needs attention. Be home soon. Jay. Oh, my goodness. I always thought that maybe he sensed he was in danger, Rosemary stated, and that's why he mailed the postcard. Now she readily admits that his he was always this guy that had sensed danger, and that's why he mailed the postcard. Maybe she's not for sure. The postmark is perfect. You can see everything on there. It reads Florida. It reads all of it. Now that clue was vital. If he hadn't done that, and he wouldn't have sent a postcard with exactly where he was, but they wouldn't know exactly where possibly if something happened where he would be. Well, the Norris family would go decades without knowing the whereabouts of James until 2011, when human remains were discovered in the rural Dixie County, Florida, back in 1976, and they were identified. It took years of DNA sampling and with the help of the University of North Texas to finally identify James Norris's body. Information on how James died is lacking, but allegedly he was carrying a large sum of cash on him at the time to purchase drugs. Now, Rosemary believes that her brother's death was a drug deal gone bad and that he was robbed prior to his murder. It's awful for my mother and it's awful for my brother, she states. James's disappearance was tough for our family, but probably ever just even more so with mom. She was strong. She loved her kids so much, but when this happened, she was destroyed. She fell into deep depression. Florida law enforcement agencies have put a lot of work investigating this case and still need more information. In 2020, FDLE announced that new leads were being worked on in his case. Now, according to FDLE spokeswoman Jessica Kari, the new leads center the group it was kind of purported marijuana dealers Norris was meeting and the connections to Citrus County, which is really sad because, I mean, if you really think about it, marijuana is legal in most states now. And that's all this was about, probably, was devil's lettuce. And that is so heartbreaking. Someone needs to pay for this because they have taken my Jimmy, she states. Rosemary saw firsthand how losing a loved one can affect a family, and the experience just inspired her to help others facing similar rights. If you think you have any information on the unsolved murder of James Norris, I ask you to call the Florida Police Department, and that is the Department of Law Enforcement, and it's 850-410-7000. That's heartbreaking. That is, and now look, it's legal and our prisons were full, and it's like, ugh, would this have happened had that been legal then? I mean, do we know? I don't know. But man, that's a lot. Mm. Okay, so let's take that one off and let's go ahead and go to the next one, which is Bobby Chaddock. Now, Bobby Chaddock loved to cook. He cooked professionally for 2 local Jacksonville restaurants and would take advantage of the opportunity he could find to cook for his friends and family at home. Bobby loved his 2 jobs. He would work as a chef at River City Brewing Company and a cook at Golden Corral. It was difficult to get his butt out of the kitchen, they state. Bobby could always cook for us, his sister Amanda says. Now he would make me second in my own kitchen, as she laughs. Bobby made a variety of things that everybody enjoyed. He would make spaghetti with homemade noodles and sauce from scratch. My favorite was his bread pudding. He made the best bread pudding. I wish he would have left up us the recipe. It was his own kitchen, and his life would be taken. On December 12th, 2009, Bobby Chaddock was preparing himself a meal in his 500 square foot apartment in San Marco area of Jacksonville when there was a knock at the door. Now, neighbors say that they did hear a commotion coming from that apartment and Bobby yelling, who was it at the door? Bobby was then discovered lying on the floor of his apartment. Amanda was living in Miami where she and Bobby grew up. And when she got the call from a Jacksonville detective, they were informing her that officers were on the way to her house to deliver the news. Well, then why call her? Amanda was living in Miami where she and Bobby grew up. When she got the call from a Jacksonville detective, they were informing her that officers were on the way to her house. Well, that's odd. Why would they call her if they're just going to her house? Like, that's a first. You don't call someone and let them know and scare them before authorities get there to tell them bad news. That's got me a little thrown off. But anyway, so she demanded to know what happened to her brother, knowing that what the call had to be about him. The detective let Amanda know that her brother Bobby had just been murdered. Amanda loaded her car, made a trip to Jacksonville with some relatives. The first stop was to the morgue to find him, and then they went to Bobby's apartment. Yeah, I don't know, Josh. It's like, why would you call and say, okay, we have officers headed to your house? That doesn't even make sense for so many reasons. That's a first for me. So, to see his Christmas tree, to see his Christmas lights blinking, there were presents underneath his tree. Christmas was always a favorite time of year for Bobby and his family. He always made a big deal out of holidays. Still reminds Amanda about how fragile and precious life can be. Now, throughout the time with the detective working on Bobby's case, Amanda says that her experience has somewhat been positive. He always would say, be patient, stay healthy, stay well. But Amanda added the detective always encouraged the family to stay positive, that he had compassion, and that, he always they did appreciate that about him. Um, okay. So Bobby's murder has never been identified, and the toll of his loved ones has been immense. His death and frustrations are not finding his killer are the only things really weighing on their minds. New organizations write stories about Bobby all the time, and they did around the time of his death. Underneath the stories, however, commenters had taken crafting to their own theories of what happened. Tinfoil hatters, of course. Here we go. Hi, Dutch. Hi. Thank you for coming in, Dutch. It's so happy to see you. Wow, thank you. So, underneath the stories, however, commenters had taken the crafting to their own theories of what happened to Bobby and why. So, the tinfoil hatters, of course, even then came out. It was just terrible, Amanda recalled. No one deserves what happened to Bobby, no matter who they are, she said. If you have any information on the unsolved murder of Bobby Chaddock, please call the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office at 904-630-0500. What another heartbreaking story. That's terrible. I mean, another life gone too soon. Awful. And this will be our final one for the evening. Now, Judith Foster calls him a mama's boy. Everyone knew it. Paul Fife Jr. was interested in more than just how his mom was doing. He was interested in heart, emotions, and how I was truly feeling. Once Paul moved off to begin college in North Carolina, he never let schoolwork or other activities get in the way of his relationship with his mom. The two would talk for hours on the phone daily, catching up on new beginnings, new happenings, and just each other's lives. Would often visit Paul on campus. Now, Paul grew up in Florida and Massachusetts as the youngest of three children. He loved to spend time at the beach. Paul was a smart kid, Judith said. He was forming full sentences when he was only 2 years old. I knew he was going to be smart right then, she says. Now, Judith learned a lot from her youngest child. He would push me to be observant, even with all the smallest creatures. She specifically recalled a time when Paul taught her about ants, stating so empathetically, "See, they work together, they cooperate." And she giggles as she just remembers that memory of something so simple as ants. She laughs, thinking back to the time Paul came home with a note pinned to his chest from his kindergarten teacher as it read, "Change begins with me." She takes that to heart more than ever, even though she still giggles. The smart 2-year-old grew up to be a smart college student. Paul moved to North Carolina to study computer science and marketing at Johnson C. Smith University, a private, historically black university. He was nearing graduation, and Judith just couldn't wait to see what he would become out of college. Paul loved to take things apart. The curiosity led him to computer science, inventions he would create or would have created and may have changed the world, says Judith. Now, on February 20th, 2013, the mother duo tandem spoke on the phone discussing Paul's expected graduation date and the requirements that he may need to walk across that stage to receive this major degree. That night would be the last time Judith ever spoke to her son. Oh, God love her. Just 2 days later, on February 22nd, Paul was shot and killed in the parking lot of a nightclub. He and some friends were attending college night at Club 935 in downtown Charlotte. Judith can still recall that faithful night to excruciating detail. The memory had been just ingrained forever. Judith was working that night shift that night. She was returning back to her mother's house where she got a message on her phone from the police. They gave her a number to call back, but nothing else. When she would reach back out to the police, she received the news. Paul was deceased. They unfortunately couldn't give any more information. They didn't have any to give. Club shootings are difficult just because of the number, not just because of the number of the people and the things happening so quickly. Charlotte Melkenberg, police detective Jacqueline Carter, told Fox 46 News on the fifth anniversary, the rest of 2013 was a blur. She struggled to cope with her son's death until coming out of her funk, as she states, as she describes in 2014. She called herself a recluse, hiding in solitude. Judith eventually recognized the disservice she was doing to her other children. They still needed their mom more now than ever. I had checked out, she says. It was tough, but Judith had to learn to balance providing for her children while mourning the loss of another. Now, to help cope with losing Paul, Judith started a nonprofit in 2014 in his honor. Now, Paul loved to run out in the nature. So Judith did some research that found that nature is a proven healer. She founded the Healing Empathy, Redemption, and Oasis Nurturing Center, or Hero Nurturing Center, to lead nature healing walks at no charge. Oh, well, that's so sweet. Now, finances can be tight for some, and Judith didn't want to cause additional stress or burdens to those already struggling, especially emotionally. So, Judith also organizes and participates in talk therapy, drum circles, and meditation to help herself and others cope with losing a loved one. Paul's murder didn't just leave a mother, sibling, and friends grieving his loss, it left his daughter without a father. Now, India was just 3 years old when her dad was killed. She's now 10. She's grown up without knowing him. Judith spends time scrapbooking just to save her memories. She works on one specifically for India. It's full of memories that she was too young to remember. Now, following Paul's murder, Judith learned a lot about her son. He volunteered, mentored for underprivileged boys, and it's a group in Charlotte. He donated a lot of his own clothing to the same group. Paul was well liked and respected on campus. A lady working at the school's register office said that Ju- told Judith just what an amazing student and gentleman Paul really was. Learning these things meant so much to Judith. She was beaming with pride for her son. Now, as uplifting and encouraging as the interactions and the stories that Judith had learned were, the investigation and the murder of her son just was going nowhere. Additionally, she had to fight the university to even receive Paul's degree. Now, the investigation itself has been another struggle. Judith says she hasn't been updated on the case in years, and that regular updates just are spotty. She's very frustrated and upset, feeling as though there's just a lack of interest from the investigators in solving Paul's murder. Judith continues to fight for justice for her son. She continues to honor his life through Hero, an organization, and studying to graduate college herself. It was a promise she had made to Paul, and one she's taken very serious and has every intention of keeping. If you have any information on the unsolved murder of Paul Fife Jr., please call the Mecklenburg Police Department at 704-336-7600. And guys, any little tip may help. You never know. Just one little tip is all it takes. That one little tip could solve a case for sure. I mean, definitely. And Duchess says Charlotte area is dangerous, in my opinion. We lost an off duty LEO today at the hands of another. Oh, God, rest in peace, officer. My goodness. It's so scary everywhere. It feels like everywhere you go, there's just never a safe place. I don't care where you're at. No place is safe anymore. And that's heartbreaking. Very. But guys, I guess that's it. Thank you all for joining me this evening. And if you would like to look those cases up yourself, you can go to projectcoldcase.org. That's their website. I shared it in chat. And there's also the link in the description of this live. With that being said, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. God bless you all. I wish you the best. And until next time, behave. Talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Story leaves a mark. We are the ones who won't forget. The fight for truth is not done yet. We shine the light. We raise the call. For the missing, the broken, we stand tall. For justice, for healing, for every tear. We carry their names, we keep them near. Doodlebug's voice, loud and clear. Advocate, reveal, we're here.